Welcome to the deep dive. Ready to go way back in time. We're talking billions of years, like all the way back to the beginning of Earth, to explore the evolutionary history of life.
It's a wild ride. So many twists and turns over billions of years to create all this amazing life we see today.
Okay, so picture this. The young solar system, dust and gas everywhere swirling around the sun, and bam, Earth forms. About 4.54 billion years ago.
Yeah, can you imagine? Like from this total chaos, this planet forms, and then, and this is crazy, not long after it gets slammed by another planet, like Mars-sized. It was called Theia, and that impact. That's what we think created the moon.
That's intense. And on top of that, early Earth was getting pummeled by meteoroids, like constantly. It's called the late heavy bombardment. It seems impossible that anything could even survive, let alone for life to actually, get started.
But you know what? It did. Somehow life found a way. There's evidence that suggests life might have already been here, like way back, 4.28 to 3.77 billion years ago. I mean, think about it. The first life forms were just single-celled organisms. And get this, they were living in a world with practically no oxygen as we know it.
Okay, now that is hard to imagine. No oxygen. So what were these early organisms like? How did they survive in a world that seems so hostile to us?
Well, you know how most life today gets energy from sunlight?
Yeah.
Yeah, these guys, they were different. They were getting their energy from chemicals. Like imagine harnessing energy from volcanic vents or deep-sea hydrothermal vents. They were tough.
It's amazing. Like they were the real pioneers of life. They basically set the stage for everything that came after.
Exactly. They really did. And then things really took off with the next big chapter, the arrival of oxygen.
Right. Oxygen, that's a game changer. I mean, it's essential for us. So how did that even happen? Where did all this oxygen come from?
So around 3 billion years ago, these cyanobacteria show up. They were the first ones to figure out how to use water for photosynthesis. And you know what they released as a byproduct? Oxygen.
Wow. So that's where it all began. But wasn't oxygen, like, toxic to a lot of the early life forms?
Oh yeah, it was a huge deal. It was basically a mass extinction event, like an evolutionary arms race, adapt or die. But those who adapted, they thrived in this new oxygen-rich world. And that led to another massive step. The rise of eukaryotes.
Eukaryotes. Okay, remind me, what are those again?
So picture this. You got your simple cells, right? Well, eukaryotes, they're like the upgrade. They've got all these membrane-bound organelles inside, like mitochondria and chloroplasts, and these little guys, they do all these specialized jobs within the cell. It's like going from a tiny workshop to a big factory.
Ah, that's a good analogy. So it's like a major leap in complexity. But how did this jump even happen? It seems like such a huge step from those simple, single-celled organisms.
Well, the leading theory is symbiosis. Basically, you had these smaller cells, the prokaryotes, and sometimes they would engulf other cells. But instead of digesting them, they kind of teamed up. Like a partnership, they both benefit. And eventually, those engulfed cells became the organelles we see in eukaryotes today.
So life basically teamed up with itself to create something more complex and amazing. That's wild. So what happened next? Did things just keep evolving in the oceans?
Nope. Life was on the move. And you know what? It looks like it conquered land way earlier than we thought. There's evidence that plants may have made it onto land like a billion years ago.
A billion years ago. That's just incredible. What did Earth even look like back then?
Okay, imagine this. Just a barren, rocky landscape, lots of sunlight. And these early eukaryotes, the pioneers, taking their first steps onto land. They were the trailblazers, the ones who made it possible for the plants that would eventually turn Earth green.
It's mind-blowing. So we've gone from these single-celled life forms in a world without oxygen to plants starting to colonize the land. What an amazing journey. So what happens next? I can't wait to hear more.
Well, buckle up, because the story's just getting started. We're about to enter the Cambrian explosion, a time of just incredible evolutionary creativity.
The Cambrian explosion, I've heard of that. That's when all sorts of new animal life just bursts onto the scene.
Exactly, and it happens fast, like a blink of an eye in geological time. You see this incredible diversity of animal life popping up in the fossil record. New body plans, new ways of moving, new ways of eating. It's like evolution went into overdrive.
It sounds like a wild time to be alive. Did all those amazing creatures that we know today evolve from this time period?
Pretty much. Most of the major animal groups that we see today can trace their roots back to the Cambrian explosion. And guess what? This is also where we see the first vertebrates emerge.
Vertebrates. So this is where we start seeing animals with backbones. This is getting exciting. Tell me more about how these early vertebrates evolved.
Well, first, you have the jawless fish swimming around. They were followed by fish with jaws, which Man, that completely changed the game. Imagine the possibilities. Jaws. It was a whole new way to eat, hunt, defend yourself, you name it.
Jaws. That's a huge step. It's amazing to think about these early innovations that eventually led to all the incredible vertebrates we see today. But we're still underwater here, right? When do we see that epic transition from water to land?
Ah, good question. So there were these fish with bony skeletons and one lineage. Guess what? They evolved into tetrapods, 4 limbs. These guys were the ones who eventually conquered land.
This is where that famous Tiktaalik fossil comes in, right? That fish with the weird fins that look like they could almost support its weight on land.
Exactly, Tiktaalik, that's the one. It's like a snapshot of evolution in action, this creature perfectly bridging the gap between water and land. I mean, who have thought that fish could evolve legs? It's just amazing what can happen with enough time and the right conditions.
So we've gone from these simple, single-celled organisms to fish with jaws to creatures taking their first steps on land. It's incredible. And I bet the story gets even more incredible from here.
Oh, you have no idea. We've barely scratched the surface. Next time, we'll dive into the age of the dinosaurs, the rise of mammals, and eventually the story of us humans.
Okay, so last time we were talking about those amazing creatures venturing out of the water and onto land. It's just mind-blowing to think about how much had already happened in Earth's history.
Right, it's like evolution just keeps pushing forward, shaping and reshaping life in these incredible ways.
So what's next? What happens in this grand evolutionary saga?
Well, now we're getting into the Mesozoic era, like the age of reptiles.
Mm-hmm.
And you know why they call it that, right?
Dinosaurs. Everyone loves dinosaurs. Weren't they like the rulers of the Earth for, what, over 150 million years?
That's right. Just picture them, these giants roaming the planet. I mean, you got your massive long-necked sauropods like Brachiosaurus munching on leaves. And then there were those fearsome theropods like P-Rex. The Mesozoic era was dinosaur time.
It's crazy to think about these creatures actually walking the Earth. It's almost like something out of a movie. But I'm guessing it wasn't just dinosaurs evolving back then.
Oh, definitely not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to get caught up in the dinosaur craze, but there was a lot more going on. Birds, mammals, and flowering plants, they were all evolving during this time, too. They were kind of setting the stage for the world as we know it.
Like they were waiting in the wings for their moment to take center stage. Were there any big developments in these groups during the Mesozoic era?
Absolutely. Take birds, for instance. There's this one amazing fossil from that time, Archaeopteryx. It's like a perfect example of a transitional fossil. It shows this crazy mix of reptilian and bird-like features, like it had feathers, wings, and even a bony tail like a dinosaur. But it also had a skeleton that was definitely bird-like.
Archaeopteryx, the missing link between dinosaurs and birds. That's so cool. It's incredible to think that the birds we see today are descended from these, reptilian ancestors. So what about mammals? Were they around during this time?
Oh yeah, they were there. But they were living in the shadow of the dinosaurs. Mostly small, trying to stay out of the way. They had to adapt to survive in a world dominated by giants.
Right. It makes sense that they had to wait their turn. So what happened? How did mammals finally get their moment to step into the spotlight?
Well, unfortunately, it took a massive disaster. The end of the Mesozoic era, about 66 million years ago, marked by the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, the one that wiped out the dinosaurs.
Oh, yeah, the big one. But what caused it? Was it that asteroid impact, the one everyone talks about?
Yeah, most scientists think so. Imagine this, a huge asteroid, like kilometers wide, slams into the Earth. The impact would have caused earthquakes, tsunamis, and wildfires all over the planet. And then all that dust and debris, it would have blocked out the sun, causing global cooling for years. It's hard to imagine how anything could have survived.
It's a terrifying thought, but in a weird way, it kind of paved the way for mammals, right? I mean, with the dinosaurs gone, they had a chance to flourish.
You got it. With the dinosaurs out of the picture, mammals finally had their chance. They started evolving and diversifying like crazy, filling all those empty niches that the dinosaurs left behind. It was like a whole new world of opportunities opened up for them.
It's amazing how this one, tragic event completely reshaped the course of evolution for mammals. So is this when the age of mammals begins?
Yep. We're talking about the Cenozoic era now, which
Yeah.
goes from 66 million years ago all the way to today.
So this is where our story really starts heading towards humans.
You got it. The Cenozoic era, that's when we see this amazing diversification of mammals, including eventually primates, which of course is the group that includes us, humans.
All right, this is getting exciting. So how did we get from these early, kind of simple mammals to all the complex life we see around us today? And I mean, us to humans, right?
Well, the Cenozoic wasn't all smooth sailing. It was a time of huge climate changes like warming and cooling periods, and that really affected how life evolved. And on top of that, the continents were still moving around, which created land bridges, separated populations. All that really drove evolution and speciation.
It's all about adapting to change, right? Like survival of the fittest.
Exactly. And you know what? Within the primates, we see this one lineage that eventually gives rise to the hominins, the group that includes humans and all our extinct relatives.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're finally getting to the human part of the story. What were these early hominins like?
Well, imagine this. Okay. Millions of years ago, in Africa, our earliest hominin ancestors are walking upright. They were pretty different from us, though. Smaller brains, more ape-like features.
Walking upright, that's like such a huge change. What driven that kind of evolution?
Well, it was probably a lot of things. Changes in the environment played a big role. Imagine those early hominins adapting to a changing landscape. Walking upright maybe helped them travel across open grasslands, more efficient. Plus, it freed up their hands for carrying stuff, like tools or food.
So it's like those environmental pressures were literally shaping the way our ancestors moved and interacted with the world. Pretty amazing. So what came after the Australopithecines?
Well, about 2.5 million years ago, the genus Homo appears. One of the earliest members was Homo habilis. These guys had larger brains than the Australopithecines, and they were the first ones to create and use stone tools.
Tools. Now we're talking. I mean, that must have been a huge advantage, right? Like finding food, protecting themselves.
Definitely. Those early tools, they opened up a whole new world for them. They could scavenge meat, maybe defend themselves better, and then about 1.8 million years ago, we see Homo erectus. These guys had even bigger brains, and get this, they ventured out of Africa and started spreading into Asia and Europe.
Wow, they were like the explorers of their time. But wouldn't spreading out like that be dangerous? I mean, new environments, new predators, how did they handle all that?
It's a good question. They had to be really adaptable. But their larger brains probably helped,
Right.
better at problem solving. And they were also the first ones to control fire.
Fire. Now that's a game changer. Warmth, cooking, protection. It must have made a huge difference.
Oh, yeah. Fire was a huge deal. It probably helped them a lot as they migrated out of Africa. And then a bit later, we see the Neanderthals, Homo neanderthalensis, showing up in Europe and Asia about 400,000 years ago.
Neanderthals. I've always been fascinated by them. They were so similar to us, but they're extinct. What do we know about them?
They were pretty incredible, actually. Super intelligent, skilled hunters. They even created art and took care of their sick and injured. Their brains were bigger than Homo erectus, and they were well suited for cold climates.
So they were pretty advanced. I wonder, did they ever meet up with our own species, Homo sapiens?
You know what? There's evidence that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens actually interbred. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
It just goes to show how intertwined our evolutionary history really is. In fact, a lot of modern humans still have a little bit of Neanderthal DNA in their genomes.
Wow, we're carrying around a bit of our ancient cousins. So when and where did our own species, Homo sapiens, show up?
We appeared in Africa about 300,000 years ago.
So we're kind of the new kids on the block, evolutionarily speaking. What made Homo sapiens so different from other hominins?
Well, for one thing, we had these larger, more complex brains. That gave us the power for language, abstract thought, and creativity on a whole other level. And we were also super adaptable, able to live in a wide range of environments.
Right, brain power and flexibility. But was there something else that helped Homo sapiens become so successful?
What really set us apart was our social skills. We were able to form these complex communities and collaborate in ways that no other hominin could. We shared knowledge, developed social structures, and worked together. That social intelligence, along with our big brains and adaptability, that's really what made us unique.
It's mind-blowing to think how far we've come, from those early hominins in Africa to where we are today. But you said it before, evolution doesn't stop, right?
You got it. Evolution's a continuous process. It's always happening, even if we don't see it. The story of human evolution is still unfolding. Who knows what the future holds?
All right, so we've covered billions of years of evolution. We've seen life emerge, adapt, and diversify in incredible ways. Now let's dive into the part I've been really looking forward to, the story of us, Homo sapiens.
Yeah, the human story. It's fascinating, full of twists and turns. It's amazing what we've learned about our own evolutionary journey.
So, last time we were talking about those early hominins walking upright in Africa. What were some of those key moments that shaped the human lineage? What set us on the path to becoming Homo sapiens?
Well, first off, you got to understand that human evolution, it wasn't like this straight line from point A to B. It was more like, a branching tree with all these different hominin species evolving, sometimes even living alongside each other.
So it wasn't just one species evolving into the next. I always pictured it that
It
way.
was way more complex than that. You had all these different hominin species branching out, each with their own adaptations, trying things out. And in the end, only one of those branches led to us.
Wow, it makes you wonder what those other hominin species were like. What would have happened if they had survived? But I guess that's a question for another deep dive. For now, let's stick with our branch of the family tree. So who are some of the big players in our evolutionary story?
Well, way back, about 6 million years ago, we see the Australopithecines show up. Like that famous Lucy fossil. They were bipedal, meaning they walked upright, but they still had small brains and a lot of ape-like features.
Walking upright. That's a huge step. Literally. What would have caused that kind of change?
Probably a bunch of things. Changes in the environment probably played a big part. Imagine, the landscape's changing. Maybe it's becoming more open grasslands. Walking upright would have been better for traveling long distances, more energy efficient. Plus, their hands were free for carrying things, like tools or food.
It's amazing how those changes millions of years ago are still a part of us today. So what came after the Australopithecines?
Around 2.5 million years ago, we see the genus Homo pop up. One of the first members of that club was Homo habilis. These guys had larger brains than Australopithecines, and they were the first to make and use stone tools.
Tools. That's a game changer, right? I mean, that must have given them a huge advantage for getting food and protecting themselves.
No doubt about it. Tools opened up a whole new world for them. They could scavenge meat, maybe defend themselves better. And then, about 1.8 million years ago, Homo erectus comes along. They had even larger brains than Homo habilis. And get this, they were the first to leave Africa and head into Asia and Europe.
So they were the explorers of their time. But wouldn't that be super risky, spreading out like that? New environments, new predators, all kinds of challenges. How did they do it?
Well, they had to be adaptable, that's for sure. And those bigger brains probably helped them solve problems and figure things out. Plus, they were the first to control fire.
Fire, that's huge. Warmth, cooking, protection from predators. I mean, fire must changed everything.
Absolutely. Fire was a game changer. It probably helped them survive in those new environments. And then a bit later, we see the Neanderthals, or Homo neanderthalensis, appearing in Europe and Asia around 400,000 years ago.
Neanderthals. There's something about them that just captures the imagination, They were so similar to us, and yet they disappeared. What do we know about them?
Well, they were really remarkable. Smart, great hunters. They even created art and took care of their sick and injured. They had larger brains than Homo erectus, and they were adapted to those cold climates.
Sounds like they were pretty advanced. Did they ever cross paths with Homo sapiens, our own species?
Actually, yeah. There's evidence that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens interbred. Isn't that fascinating? It shows how connected our evolutionary history is. In fact, many people today still carry a little bit of Neanderthal DNA in their genes.
Wow, we're carrying a little piece of those ancient relatives inside us. It's incredible. So when and where does our own species, Homo sapiens, finally show up?
We emerged in Africa about 300,000 years ago.
So relatively speaking, we're new to the scene. What made Homo sapiens stand out from those other hominins?
Well, we have these big complex brains. That gave us the ability for language, abstract thought, creativity. It was like taking a huge leap forward. And we were incredibly adaptable, able to live in all sorts of environments.
So we had the brain power and the flexibility to overcome new challenges and spread all over the world. But was there something else that helped make Homo sapiens so successful?
Honestly, it was probably our social skills more than anything. We were able to form these complex communities and work together like no other hominin. We shared knowledge, we built social structures, we collaborated. That social intelligence, combined with our big brains and adaptability, that's what really set us apart.
Wow, it's amazing to think about the whole journey, from those early hominins taking their first steps in Africa to where we are now. But like you said earlier, evolution isn't over.
Exactly. It's a continuous process, always happening. The story of human evolution is still being written. It's exciting to think about what the future holds for us.
It's incredible, isn't it? We're part of this huge ongoing story of life on Earth. From those first single-celled organisms to the incredible diversity of life we see today, it's been a wild ride. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive through time.
It's been my pleasure.
Yeah.
It just goes to show that the story of life on Earth is full of wonder and discovery. There's always something new to learn.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time for another plunge into the depths of knowledge.